Welcome to the tactics tutorials. Usually as a new player it can be difficult to even beat a computer team, so we're going to be using example playbooks that you should be able to plug and play, and you can find these playbooks at GLB2scout.com. and if you log in you have to get a membership. You go to the strategy library and you go to the second pages and you'll find it under Kavoth 27 tactics tutorial example. So the way play calling works for offense is each situation you have frequencies of play calls, and then they're sorted into the playbook by section. So we'll get into the tactics later, but for now we'll start by the different types of plays. So usually CPUs are predictable, and oftentimes in a 4 wide receiver spread set, they will run specifically pass defense. So if you know this, against the CPU, you'll want to call inside runs from that set because you know they're usually going to be in dime with a lot of corners in the field. So for our inside run set, we're going to have a lot of runs from the 4 wide. Every playbook section for offense needs to have 5 to 15 plays. So we have 6 here. We could get rid of 1. But if we get rid of 2, it doesn't let us save. So 15 is the maximum, 5 is the minimum. For outside runs, specifically as of today, CPUs call a variety of defenses, but a lot of them are man defenses and inside blitzes, and those in particular are weak to certain formations and certain plays. And so for the big I formation, which doesn't have a receiver on this side, if they call a man defense, there will be a huge opening right here. And if they call an inside blitz, there will be even more of an opening here. So generally, you want to call specifically these 2 plays against CPUs for outside runs, because this entire side of the field with no receiver is completely open when they call man defense. And since it's random, they call it quite frequently. We took a few extra plays that use similar concepts. QB runs are the same. The halfback will block, so you'll have an extra blocker, but QBs are usually slower. But that extra blocker can make a big difference, and this most of the time should work against a computer. But feel free to tweak these as much as you want. This is just a starting template. For very short runs, which in the tactics we plan to use mostly on 2 yards or less, we run a lot of QB sneaks. Otherwise, the inside runs, which you can run from any formation, you can sort by all these types and formations. You can run whatever you want, but for the most part, if it's 2 yards that you need, this will get you that. Skipping this for now. So the bread and butter of the passing, we're going to use medium passes. The actual designation here doesn't make a difference. All it does is help you sort, so you can actually have them as much as you want. But for organization purposes and clarity, we're going to start with medium as our first down pass. So in this game, the most effective routes are posts and corners, in my opinion. And generally you will see most teams calling these particular plays specifically to the tight end because of the mismatch, since corners have a lot of bonuses to pass defense and safeties and linebackers do not. So you'll see specifically plays like this where they run maybe 7 yards and then make a 45-degree break. So anytime you see a play like this, generally this is a bread and butter passing play. This one's a bit of an exception. And the way that progressions work is you pick your primary target and then it'll go left to right starting from that target. So if I pick the tight end as a primary, the second read will be the backup tight end. If I pick the wide receiver 1 as the primary, the fullback would be the second read. And then it would continue around all the way back to the start. But this playbook is already set, so when you download it, it should have all of the progressions optimized. So these are the plays you'll be using for the most part to beat CPUs and to It's like a baseline for beating other players as well. And the way to download these playbooks is you hit View Strategy, and then you hit Export, and it'll save it to your playbooks if you link your account to your in-game account. So for medium passes, which is what our first down is, we're mostly going for the first down, but we're not risking too much to do so. Usually they break right about that line. For short yardage, which we're considering as 5 yards or less, we're going to call short passes, which instead of making a break and continuing, usually they're like hooks, slants, ins, outs. Sometimes we still try to run posts and corners, but for the most part they're shorter yardage. And generally the point of this is, so the different types of passes don't matter in here, but they do matter here. So if you call a long pass, the QB is more likely to hold the ball for a longer period of time, and he's more likely to be sacked. So if you only need 5 yards, you should probably look for a short pass, and you should look for routes that break as soon as it hits 5 yards, because as soon as he hits it, as long as he didn't get sacked before that, the QB will throw the ball immediately. But if you called a long pass play, even if he hit here, he might continue to hold the ball. He might look for another read. And if you called a short pass play that went too long, it's less likely to be completed because the corner would just stick on him instead of getting juked out. So these are our short pass plays. You can take a look at the playbooks. For third and longs, it's a little bit different. We can't just run 5 yards because the way it works is that the QB will specifically not throw the ball on third downs until the receiver has hit the first down marker. So if you tried to run a hook on 3rd and 10, the QB would just never throw the ball. So for long pass plays, you still want to focus on short or medium because you want to get the ball out before the blitz gets you, but you want routes that specifically reach the first down marker as soon as possible. So we pick routes. Currently this is set up for about 8 yards, 5 to 8. Sometimes 8 and 10. Sometimes we call long passes from 8 and 10, but mostly not. Mostly it's for 5 to 8. We're trying to get routes that go all the way to the first down marker and then make their break. So it's some of the same bread and butter plays, but trimmed down from the ones that don't specifically do this. And then if it's really desperate and it's third and very long, or it's like a Hail Mary type situation, sometimes you can call these on first down if your team is built for it, but for the most part, on a balanced offense, you'll get sacked if you try to call these too much, and these are the long pass plays. So for example, stuff like verticals. And if you try to call these in most situations, especially on third and very long, you will get sacked. But sometimes it is completed and sometimes you have no choice. So there's a deep passing playbook for this as well. And the reason you often get sacked is because the QB will only drop back so far, and he won't throw until the receiver gets there, and usually they don't have enough time unless they're extremely fast before a blitz gets to them. And then you get sack fumbles, and that's a really easy way to spiral out of control and lose a game. So generally, now we move to tactics. This is why we have the tactics settings. Because on third downs, you can make it so that you never call pass deep if you don't want to. You can make it so that you only run outside because it's safer. Some teams run inside on third and very long. Some teams call another alternative, which is screenplays. Screenplays are very rarely sacked at the current moment, so all of these are ways to risk a big play or a first down without having to worry about sacks. So as far as the tactics, you can set how to hold back players to stop the blitz. You generally don't want to hold back the tight end because that's your primary pass catcher. You don't usually want to hold back your running back if you're doing screens. I guess I don't think you can. You want to ignore the big lead and trailing big for the most part because you don't want these to override your other tactics because there's a lot less control over the leading tactics and the trailing tactics than there is the regular ones. And you have other tactics, which we can get into, to deal with these situations specifically. So I make this as large as possible so that these are never a problem game to game, saves you a lot of time. Field goals depends on your kicker. When you're first starting out, your kicker doesn't have any points yet, so they don't kick very well, so you'll probably want to reduce this a lot, maybe 45, maybe like 43, take this down to 50. But as your kicker gets stronger, you can start upping these numbers and see where you like it. So currently, the balanced playbook is going to call medium passes half the time and then runs half the time, split equally between inside and outside to keep defenses honest. It usually calls the same on second down, except if it's very short, you'll try a little bit more of inside runs, and if it's very long, you'll try a little bit more of the risky passes. Third down, it's the same, but taken even further. You'll run even more inside, and you'll take even riskier stuff outside. This used to be a little bit different. Most of the time you're on outside, but sometimes, just in case the defense is keyed in on you, it's nice to have some variety, because you only need that one play that tricks them every game, and maybe you can win. Red zone, it's the same thing. Same exact thing, but sometimes if you're a deep passing offense, you'll want to change your red zone tactics a lot because there's obviously not enough space to burn defenders deep, so you'll have to try shorter passes and runs. Leading tactics, we generally just run the clock out. Outside runs can go out of bounds too often. Passes can end up in sacks and turnovers, and also just stop the clock. So we're just going to set all inside runs. Very short runs can be a little bit dangerous because it's a QB running, and the QB is more likely to fumble, so we'd rather give it to the running back and just chew up some clock. One more thing about the red zone, if you're inside their 3, you're almost always going to run. And if you're but not always. And if you're inside your own 5, you're not going to risk getting a safety. So trailing tactics are interesting. These are ignored because we have this here, and you'll never be behind by 99 or up by 99. And if you are, it usually doesn't matter. For the most part, once we get into actual trailing tactics, it usually means that either your defense didn't perform or your offense didn't work the way it was supposed to. So we're going to break away from what we've been doing with the medium passes and run a lot more of the passes that we weren't running, like the screens and the deep passes, but also some of the outside runs. Inside runs are less of a priority because it's not going to be enough to catch us up at the end of the game. And then you can set all your tactics for different situations depending on how much you're losing by, but it's only for fourth down so far. And then we go to other situations, which is actually an underrated part of this playbook and extremely important. If you're inside your own 20 with less than 1 minute, you usually just want to run the clock out because it doesn't tell you how far inside your own 20. You could be on the 1 yard line. You might even want to put very short runs because if you get sacked or you get tackled for a loss, then it's a safety or a defensive touchdown. 3-minute offense, I usually call specifically really long passes and outside runs and screens because this will override all of these tactics, which means that this will get called on third down as well. And you don't ever want to call short or medium passes on third down because, like we went over, if you don't reach the first down marker, you will always get sacked. So you have to call only passes that can reach the first down marker or runs/screens that will get the ball to the outside right off the bat and don't even have to worry about sacks. Same goes for the tie game offense. You don't want to call anything that doesn't reach the first down. And then if you're in max field goal range, first to third, you probably just want to run inside, but field goal kickers miss a lot. So it might be worth still running the same offense you were running here. And the reason why we run more screens is because you don't want them to be a primary part of your offense usually, but in situations where you're only going to call them maybe once a game, sometimes defenses are not ready for it, and you can get away with a big gain. And that's pretty much how you set up offense. You can sort all the stuff, look through lots of plays. There's tons of plays, so many formations and plays and everything. Experiment with all this stuff. There's a lot of plays that work that don't fit some of these principles. You don't always have to call corners and posts. Depending on the builds that you like and depending on who you're playing against, any play in the game can work. And there is also a hidden benefit to play variety. So the more plays you call in a game that are different from each other, the more bonuses you get, and the less bonuses defense get. So sometimes there are reasons to call the same play frequently, and if you want to do that, you'll put all these down to low priority and then call this one with 5. So 4 out of 9 times you'll call one of these, but 5 out of 9 you'll call this, and this is the most you can get as far as, quote, spamming play. And sometimes the defense, if you scout them on GLB2 Scout, you can go to a team and you can do a scout, and it'll show you, this is a companion app to the game, it'll show you every play this team has ever called in every formation, every situation, and you can get a feel for their tendencies, and if you like what you see, you can call one play a lot. But if they call a variety of stuff and they don't tend to have weaknesses, then it benefits you a lot to call a large variety of plays. Of course, ones from situations that you prefer. Other than that, this site is amazing for a lot of stuff, and I would highly recommend it. There's a lot of stuff you can do here. It helps you make players as well. You can change around all the points, see what end builds look like, plan stuff. Very helpful. And that's offense.